This room currently has a light switch that controls the top half of an outlet so you can plug in a lamp, but the bottom half of the outlet is always on and there's no overhead lights. So I want to rework this space so I can add an overhead light to the room. So I'm going to have to rework my wiring a little bit and run a new wire from my switch to the ceiling. So I'm going to start by measuring the space and figuring out where I want my light to go and drilling a test hole and making sure I'm not running into a rafter above. I had marked the spot where I thought I wanted my light to go. Now I'm just going to take a drill bit and drill a hole right here. That way, if I do run into something above, it's easy for me to patch it. But I'm going to drill a test hole and then I'm going to put a really long rod through it. So when I go up in the attic, I can find it amongst the insulation and I can go uncover it and make sure that it's not running into a joist or any other type of wood that either is hard to move or can't be moved before I drill a big full-size hole. Above where my light switch is in the ceiling, I'm trying to find the top plate that I'm going to need to drill through to put the wire down to the switch. So instead of cutting a big hole here, which you can also do, and I've seen people do, I'm hoping if I drill and at an angle, then if I put one of my rods through, it will pop out in at least around the area of my top plate. And then I can scoot over and drill straight down in the top plate and fish my line down to try to find where it will come out by my outlets or by my switch. And so I'm just trying to avoid doing a big hole right here. If you want to drill at an angle, I find it helps to go straight just a little bit to get your grip so it's not dancing around, your bit's not dancing around on the wall. Pull it back out and then go at an angle. And once I drill all the way through, I'm going to fish another one of these rods through so that in the attic, I can find where it pops out. Because the breakers aren't labeled super well in this house, I had to go up and down the stairs a couple of times before I found the right breaker to turn off the power in this room. And then I just double checked with my electrical tester before I did anything to make sure the power was truly off. After that, I was able to remove my outlet and remove my light switch. Now I'm just testing if my power source is at the outlet or if it's at my switch, because I have two sets of wires here and two sets of wires there. But we gotta see where the power is coming from. Don't touch any of your wires, you're just testing. Okay, my outlet without being connected, there's no power here, which means my power is coming in from the switch. So if I check this wire, so that's my one on this bottom coming in from over here, that's where my power is coming in, and then it's also feeding over there. So what it's doing is it's feeding the bottom half of that outlet all the time. The top half comes on by a switch. So what we want to do is make it where it feeds that outlet all the time. And then from here up to the light, then I'm going to make that come on and off of the switch. I'm also going to have to add the wire for the light. So now I'm in the attic. I was able to find where my yellow piece came up through my hole. You can see I had started it outside the wall. This is where my top plate is. So I'm going to drill a hole through there that's going to give me access down into the wall from up here. Over there, you can see the other one I ran up. See that yellow? It's hard to see because of all the dust. That's where my light's gonna go. So I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna drill a decent sized hole. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't running into like a joist or anything, and I can put my round box for my light there. So first we're gonna do this because we gotta get the wire ran through here. This is gonna be the hardest part, and then we'll run it over to there and down. I cut a hole above my switch box, so when I run my fish tape down through my top plate, I'm able to find it in my wall and grab it. Once I pull my fish tape out of that hole, I'm going to attach the wire and the fishing tape together securely, and then I'm going to go up in the attic and pull the tape back up, pulling the wire through my hole and up through my top plate above my switch. Yeah, nice. I'm going to pull enough length of wire through that I can run this over to the hole I drilled for my fixture in the ceiling. And then I'm going to give myself some extra. I'm going to pull down more wire than I need because you don't want to have to do this again. And if you cut it too short, you make a mistake, you will. So I know it's a bit wasteful, but I will pull down a lot more than I need, especially in a tricky situation. Then I can use those scraps for a pigtail or something later too. So I'm gonna add my box up here, but I'm gonna cut that down here. And then over here, I'm gonna do the same. I'm gonna cut a lot extra because I did this just so I could reach my hand in here and grab. I'm gonna force this in through my box and out through here. So I obviously want enough to work with. And then again, I want extra just in case. So I'm gonna cut way more than I need just for my peace of mind and because I'm not a pro at this, so I can make a mistake. we are gonna have to patch, obviously right here. But the nice thing is, since we were able to find our top plate, which is that hole, that's gonna be a little easier of a repair. When you go to buy your box, you wanna pay attention, because if you're in a situation like us where you're retrofitting, you're working in a situation where the drywall is there, you wanna get the right type of box. This is a new work box. This is something you can attach when you just have the framing, it goes onto the studs, then you install it, you do all your wiring, you install the drywall around it, right? This is an old work box. So you cut the hole, you shove this up in it, and as you tighten these screws, these open up and it pinches down on the drywall, and the drywall is what holds this on. If you got something like this, you're gonna have a really hard time, sorry, the insulation's still getting to me from being in the attic. You're gonna have a really hard time with the original boxes, and nearly impossible unless you tear more stuff out. So you wanna get an old work box, a retrofit box, if you're adding lights when your drywall is already in place. Now, keep in mind, if you purchase this, you cannot use this with a ceiling fan. This will tell you how much weight it can hold, but it's not a lot, and it's only as strong as the drywall around it if you're not mounting to a bracket. So this is gonna be for a light. I'm doing a really lightweight light. I'm not doing a ceiling fan. If you wanna be able to add a ceiling fan, you need to get a ceiling fan rated box. So keep that in mind. I'm going to push my wire back up in the hole just for a minute so it's out of the way, and then I'm going to drill the hole for my box. In the back of your box, you have, these are called knockouts. In this case, there's 4 of them, and that's where the wires can go in, and it kind of grabs the wire for you, it pinches it. You just want to bend this in. You're not trying to break it out all the way because you still want it to pinch the wire when it goes through there. So we're just gonna push the wire through. In this case, I only have 1 wire coming in, so I'm just gonna bend and loosen just one of my knockouts. Now when you tighten these, it's gonna open up those little fins that we saw, and that's gonna grab onto the drywall. So you wanna push it up all the way. Then see how I can tug on that and I wasn't struggling as much? It's because that's now grabbing. Okay, so over here, what I had determined, this is all off. We verified with our electrical tester, we've turned it off of the box. Always test or check with some sort of system. Even if you think you turned it off the night before, someone else could have came and turned it on. So always double check. So I know my power is coming in. This is what's gonna go to my light. My wire right here, my power is coming in. It's this black, my hot, and then one of these whites that's all tied together. My neutral, my ground doesn't, or sorry, my neutrals are all together. My ground doesn't matter. Now, this is the power going to the outlets. And then this was also this third wire, this red wire going to the outlet. That gave us an option to have the outlet on 2 separate controls, how it was before. So we had one that made the bottom always on, and then one that made it come on with the switch. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna omit this red wire. It's not connected anywhere else here, and it's not connected anywhere else at the outlet because we want the outlet to be on all the time now. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna cap this off here and cap it off over there. It's okay to be in the wall like that because it's not receiving anything and it's not giving anything. So that will be just dead. We're just gonna pretend like that's not there. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna tie all these blacks together and we're gonna do a pigtail off of here onto the bottom of the outlet. So this always feeds the outlets. The outlets are always on, right? And then we're going to do this black wire into the top of the switch so the power can either be on or off if we want the light on, but it's always feeding those things, okay? So not that complicated. So now what we're going to do is we're gonna actually trim this down now. I am, again, paranoid, so I'm gonna leave a little bit extra and I'll push it up in the wall because we're retrofitting, right? So like when you build, you have to staple it down, you don't have any slack, but I'll tell you what, when I retrofit something, I leave myself a little bit of a slack in case I have to come back here down the road. I don't have to play this game of running the wires again. So I'm gonna go like here because we wanna be about that, well, let's go here because then we can push up to that length of working with those guys. So I'm gonna go here, cut that off. So you have to take the sheathing off so that you are able to expose each of these wires and see your black, white, and your ground. But people get hurt doing this a lot. So let me show you an idea. When you are cutting this to expose your wires, you want to cut away from yourself. I've seen a lot of people slip and cut their hand, cut their leg. So you're just going to cut deeply and away. Keep your blades sharp so you're not having to worry about it, a really dull blade making this harder. If you are not comfortable just doing this open, one thing that I think you can do that is helpful is to get some sort of a board, and then it kind of gives you a backing. It's like piercing your ear with an apple or a potato behind it or whatever, right? So we're cutting all the way through like that. That's an option too. Then I'm just gonna cut off all this extra junk that's in my way. Now, if you're an electrician, what you do, make sure you leave that on the floor and don't pick it up and have someone else at the job site get it for you later. Basically, this I'm going to straighten out because it's not going to be going directly onto my outlet now. It's going to be coupled together with like a wiring nut. I'm going to show you a different type that you may not have seen before. So we don't need that to be bent though. Then we're going to expose just the amount that we need. Join that with the others, and then we're going to do the same with our white wire. All right, guys, so now here's the deal. We're gonna go ahead and take these white wires apart because we gotta put all of our white wires together. All of our blacks are gonna go together, and we'll add this in with our grounds. So I'm gonna take this off. So this is gonna go to the top of my switch. These blacks are gonna go together. But again, so I can tie this into the bottom of my switch, obviously I can't put two on there, or I shouldn't. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to make a pigtail. So my wire, my scrap wire, when I cut too much, and I said I can trim that off and use it later, I'm gonna take a section of this and I'm gonna attach there, and that's gonna be what goes into my bottom of my light switch to power that connection. So I'll go ahead and cut a little section, again, more than I need. Can always trim it down. Sometimes you can even just get these, you can open it, or you can just get this, see, I can just get that little black section out. So I'm just taking that. I'm gonna unsheath that on one side to connect to my other two black wires. And then I'm gonna do one side to go to my switch. I'm gonna go ahead, just because I know now this is not a part of the equation, I'm just gonna go ahead and cap off our red. Let's go ahead and get our coppers, so our grounds together. So what we see here, if you're not familiar with this is our ground connection. And this nut is a little bit different than the other ones because it has a hole in the tip of it. And so what this installer did with this nut was they tied their grounds together, but then, here, this is really messed up. We'll just get that out of there. See that hole in the tip? So that gives the ground an option for everything to connect. They left one of their wires longer, and then they left it, this end, they're all connected, but then this end was able to go and connect to the grounding screw on the outlet. In this case, they had this type of nut. I have had times where I've had times where I didn't have these, and basically made a pigtail. So you attach them all and then take, again, that scrap piece of copper, come out and then tie it in. So what we're gonna do, because they've done it this way, and that's smart, that works, we're just going to tie our copper into all of these copper grounds. Make sure it goes in at the tip. And we're gonna put it through that hole again, work our way down. And my little tip of my wire is sticking out a little bit, so I'm gonna pinch that on there and then work it on. So then this will go on my switch. Same thing here, I want all of my neutrals, I want all my whites together all the time. So the only ones that are gonna kind of need something special is our hots, our blacks. So I'm gonna go ahead and tie this onto here and go ahead and go with our connector there. Now, if you're a little bit uncomfortable with these, I saw something at the store. I just want to show you. There's a lot of different brands of these. This is almost like sometimes when you get the LED panel lights, they have these connectors where you just push to connect. It's just a push and wire connector. Sometimes, if you don't get these exact right, and you're trying to push everything back into your outlet, your wires can come loose from each other. If you have a lot going on in a box, that's possible and that's hard to deal with. So basically these, you have to get the right size, because for instance, this is for 3, and then here's a pack, and they have 4 connection ports. So make sure they're big enough for what you need. But basically these will allow you to just push your wire in instead of having to use a nut like this. These are more expensive. There's another brand. These are just the Home Depot brand, I am guessing. They have a brand called WAGO or WAGO that actually like clips down, clips off, and those are even more expensive. So just another option I wanted to share with you guys if you're not super comfortable with this. So now we have all of our grounds and all of our neutrals connected. Now what we're going to do is we're going to connect this. And here, let's use one of our little new guys. So we're trimming these down. So basically when we stick this into our connector, we don't have just a ton of exposed, unsheathed wire sticking out. So I'm gonna trim that down. Sometimes it's a little bit unavoidable, but so we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna, so again, my power and my hot going to my outlets, we're gonna go ahead and push one of those in. And you can see on the back side that it's in there. We're gonna go ahead and push one of those in. Now, how cool are those? Now we're gonna take our little pigtail that we made, we're gonna push that in. Cool, so we can see all of our wires are in there. Now this is gonna go to the bottom to power my outlet, and this is gonna go to the top, and then of course we'll do our grounding. So let's get our switch. Just open these up, and I usually just get my ground dealt with first because why not? All right, so I always think about when I hook this, so you're gonna put a little curve on it, and then that little curve is gonna go around your screw, and then I'm gonna pinch it down so it's even on there tighter, and then we're gonna tighten the screw. I always think about which way this is gonna turn. So if this is turning clockwise, if I had made this hook this way, when the screw tightened this way, it would be pushing it out. So I wanna make it where it's splaying down, but I'm not fighting against. So that's how it doesn't have to be that way. That's just how I decide which direction my little hook is gonna go. And then if you feel like you wanna tighten it the rest of the way without a drill, like with your screwdriver, you can squish it down even more. Okay, so that's it for our ground, that's on there. We're gonna come over here to our, again, because we have it off, I want power, you know. So this is going to go that way to tighten. So I am going to curve this one this way. And then I'm gonna tighten it down. And I like to have a set of needle nose pliers when I do this. I don't have one here, but just to splinch that down if you're able to a little bit more, but I don't have a set here. And then we're gonna tighten that, and we're gonna make sure it's on there nice and snug. Now, last thing we have is the supply going to our light. Same thing. My least favorite part is fitting this all back into the box, right? So we're making sure everything's nice and snugly attached. If you want to tug and just make sure. And then we're just gonna work on smooshing everything back in there. And some people will trim them down shorter, which I totally understand, but when you work on properties that you come back to year after year and you're like, oh my gosh, I have to find a way to get in there again and make everything fit, like I need the wire. You don't want to get rid of all that wire, because one day you're gonna need it and you're not gonna have to run a new one. Listen, don't judge me here. Getting wires in an outlet is one of my most toxic flaws. And we may have to, when we get our outlet on here later, straighten this out a little bit more. Okay, I'm not gonna do anything with this yet though, because I still have to install my light, and I wanna make sure this is how I want it. So it's not super snug, it's not super straight potentially. So now we're gonna go back over to our ceiling and we're gonna install our light, but I'm gonna wash my hands first. Since the wiring for the overhead light fixture is just a basic install, I'm just gonna do a time lapse here, but if you need to know how to do this portion, I do have a video on wiring a light switch, so I'll put a link to that in the video description. Power is still off. We have our light installed in the ceiling, we have our switch installed and wired. Now we have to work with our outlet. This isn't hard to do, but you do have to get a replacement outlet, and let me show you why. This is the outlet that we took off, and this is just a new outlet. So if you look at the side, see how this one has this little metal tab and this one doesn't? When your outlet comes, it has the metal tab like that, connecting the top and the bottom. The reason for that is sometimes people want to wire just where everything works the same, which is what we're used to, or like we had where the bottom was always on but the top was controlled by a switch. That little piece that they removed, that little tab, that's a conduit, right? And so if that had still been there, this whole thing would have always been powered regardless. But because the top and the bottom had a separate purpose, they had to take off that little piece there. So we want to bring power in and take power out to continue, because we're bringing the power in from the switch and then we're taking the power out to the rest of the outlets around. We want that to just always be on all the time. We need that little conduit piece in there, that little tiny metal tab. So we're gonna go ahead and throw this away, and we're gonna put a new outlet on. So basically all we're gonna do is, your brass always has, well, normal wiring has your black, your hot, and then your silver has your white, your neutral. And so just make sure that, for instance, if the black from one wire is on the bottom, put the white from that wire on the bottom, the black from the one going out is on the top, the white from the one going out is on the bottom, and then we're gonna attach our ground. So our power is still off. There's no way there's any power, but we're gonna just double check. Like the ceiling light, at this point, the wiring for this outlet is not anything out of ordinary. So you're just gonna wire this like you would wire a normal outlet, except that red wire in there, because it has no purpose and it's not receiving any power, we're gonna go ahead and cap that and just fold it in the back of the box. I'm not gonna make you watch a breakdown of this because it's not the purpose of this video. All right, guys, moment of truth. Nice. It is so cool to have overhead lights. Now, I have 2 more rooms to go, so this is just 1 of 3. But this was the first house I ever bought. It's a rental now, but this is the first house me and my husband ever bought. We bought it right when we got married, and we had the light switch to lamps, and it was so annoying, but we couldn't afford, to do anything to it then. So this is awesome because the family, it's gonna be so much more efficient for whatever family ends up living here. So here's another cool thing about this light. So it can be a light or it can be a night light. So it's got that extra little, so you can turn it on. And then if you flip it back on right after, you have that little night light function, which was about how dark it was in here with the lamp. How awesome is that? So cool. Now we just want to test that our outlets are always on. So top one plugged in, on, and the switch is off. And then bottom one plugged in, on, switch is off. So we're good. Everything is working as it should.